It is Monday, November 25th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. It is presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL. That is Justin Penik. I am Chris Rose. Producer Connor along for the ride as well, and Bobby Skinner is riding a big bird on his way back to his home state of Florida after joining you for tailgate action and an awesome Giants game against the Bucks. Man, I could just see the enthusiasm on your face today, Penik.
One of the most embarrassing Giants games that I've ever been to, and it's not really a topic on this show, Rose. But Rose, man, they can't make it. These Giants can't make it 6 more games looking like this, where it's trended in the direction of cleaning house, which is crazy. And after 3 years, after Gettleman gets 4, these guys are going to get 3. They made the playoffs 2 years ago. It was one of the more embarrassing games that I've ever been to, and I've only been going for like the last 15 years. I know a lot of other people have been going for longer, and maybe they even witnessed the 70s and stuff, but it was bad. Bad.
Well, that's okay. I'll cheer you up by talking about one of your former New York Giants players who took
makes me feel so much better, Rose.
Yes, on Sunday and Sunday Night Football, which has been replaced by Saquon Night Football. Saquon Barkley, 302 scrimmage yards, a Philadelphia Eagles record of 255 yards rushing. The Eagles stopped the Los Angeles Rams out at SoFi Stadium. 37-20 is your final. They have now won 7 in a row, and Barkley, 270-plus yard touchdown runs in the second half alone. The last person to do that, I was sitting next to him on the desk last night at NFL Network, Maurice Jones-Drew, who witnessed that firsthand because he also calls the Rams games on radio. And for Barkley, we can get into the MVP discussion if we want to somewhere down the line. But for me, I don't think I've ever seen a better free agent pairing between player and team than Barkley and the Eagles.
No, really, this NFL offseason, the teams that it makes sense for them to go out and get running backs did. The Green Bay Packers, Jacobs had a pretty good day yesterday. The Ravens went out and got Derrick Henry. We were talking about Derrick Henry in a very similar light as we're talking about Saquon Barkley right now, just a couple weeks ago, and he's still really good. And now, these teams with good infrastructures, and I think that's the important and that's the key thing. These teams with good infrastructures, with decent play calling, better offensive lines, are going out and getting these running backs, and I think you're seeing the difference being made, especially where these teams that have dangerous quarterbacks, we'll take Jalen Hurts, for example. Jalen Hurts has his issues. I still view him as a dangerous quarterback. You have to worry about A.J. Brown. You have to worry about Devontae Smith, who, even though he was out last night with that hamstring injury, still you have to worry about these guys. So you're not going to stack the box anymore in today's NFL, so these guys are just going to run around, and that's what Saquon Barkley is doing. He's particularly doing it in the second half. We could talk about those numbers too. Saquon Barkley now in the NFL, leading in attempts, leading in yards, 1,392 yards last night officially. That is his career high. We're 11 games into the year, Chris Rose, and he played 16 games in 2022 with the Giants. He had his career high in rushing that year, 1,312 yards, 295 attempts, by the way. He only has 223 attempts. So yeah, he's leading the league in attempts and he's leading the league in yards. It's not just off of volume. He's also leading the league in yards per attempt and yards per game, and also total scrimmage yards as well. So Saquon Barkley has been awesome, and really an Eagles team that you can maybe look at it and still say, yeah, maybe there's some issues here, but it's been totally masked and carried by Saquon Barkley, especially as we're looking at the second half of this year.
Yeah, just a few other things about Barkley before we move on. He is on pace to set the single-season rushing record. Eric Dickerson has held that mark since 1984. It was back at 2105, and obviously we're talking about a 16-game schedule as opposed to 17-game schedule, but people who were fans of Jim Brown back in the day are like, well, he didn't even come close to playing 16 games in a year back when he was setting records in the 50s and early 60s. We understand that, but the games change, and whatever the number of games played or the number of games played, we can sit here and compare and say, well, Eric Dickerson was way better than Saquon Barkley and all this sort of stuff. What I will say about Barkley, and the reason that he's certainly at the very least going to win Offensive Player of the Year, is because he never has to come off the field. Right. Whereas when the Ravens were playing the Steelers and they had their biggest drive of the game, where was Derrick Henry? He was on the sidelines because he is not the receiving threat that Saquon Barkley is. Yep. Even on a 2-point conversion when the Ravens had to try and tie the Steelers, where was Derrick Henry? For whatever reason, he was standing on the sidelines. That is something that you would never do that Nick Sirianni would never do is have Saquon Barkley standing next to him as opposed to being on the field trying to help his team. So he is such a difference maker. I do think that he's going to get strong consideration for being the first non-quarterback since Adrian Peterson a dozen years ago to win the MVP. Mike Tirico made a big deal about it on the broadcast. He said, listen, I'm not one of those guys that talks MVP before Thanksgiving, but have at it if you wish. Real quickly, if you had a vote right now, would it be Barkley? Would it be Josh Allen? Would it be Lamar? Would it be somebody else?
Then this is for MVP, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, but then this gets into the whole, is it a quarterback award conversation, right?
Well, I mean, it has been, but I mean, it doesn't have to be.
I would still give it to Lamar or Josh Allen over Barkley.
Yeah, I think that depending on where those two teams finish, yeah, Lamar has been even better than he was last year when he won his second. I had somebody at NFL Network, a good buddy of mine, say, what if the Chiefs finish 16-1? How can you not give it to Mahomes?
Right, which he's still, there's a lot of people that are betting on it, so to speak. So, he's a favorite in that. So,
let me ask you this one question about Barkley. Would you rather have Saquon Barkley or the two-headed running back monster that they've got in Detroit of Montgomery? And
I think I would rather. This is so. I would rather have the two-headed monster.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a good one. Now, are we? This is a good exercise, and I want to ask this question not to avoid it because I already made it. Or how about you? What would you prefer? Before we go further.
Yeah, I think I would go with the 2 over the 1.
Yeah. And I would also prefer Detroit's infrastructure and their offensive line with how they get the ball to their running backs and how they create space over Saquon Barkley. Because right now, it kind of just feels like Philly's just kicking ass versus Detroit. Like, they kick ass and they do fun stuff that gets everybody out in space and things like that. So that's why I would still prefer Detroit, as I think Gibbs and Montgomery are two very different types of backs. Where Gibbs, just the acceleration just looks different. But Barkley can give you both, though. Like, Montgomery's the power guy, but Barkley can give you both. You see the acceleration, which, by the way, it just does look different now that he's with the Eagles than it ever did on the Giants, which is another frustrating thing as a Giants fan. It just looks different this year. It looks like he's 2018, 2019 Barkley again, where he did not even look like that. Even in 2022, it's like, this is not as fast as you used to be, bro. Yeah, man. So I would prefer the two-headed monster, but still, Barkley is still the combination of power and speed. Where that, even your question that you asked, is a tough one.
And by the way, let's put it to bed with this. For all the people that are ripping the New York Giants, and there are going to be plenty of them lining up to take their shots at Joe Shane and what happened on the offseason Hard Knocks and the phone call and the decision to give Daniel Jones his money, but not to extend Saquon Barkley big time, all that sort of stuff. I want to say this. Thank you. Thank you. As an NFL fan, we would not have seen this with the New York Giants. Let's play it out. Let's say they had given Saquon a 3-year, $39 million deal to keep him in Giants blue. What would he have done this year? Maybe he'd have 750, 800 yards at this point of the year. Maybe the Giants would have 1 or 2 more wins.
Yeah, but
that's it. Instead, we get to see him at his best on a team that is rolling, that is currently the second best in the NFC, in my opinion, by an awful lot. I still think there's a fairly sizable gap between Detroit and Philadelphia, but maybe that's for a discussion somewhere in the month of January. But thank you, New York Giants. People think that just because he was drafted by the Giants, so he's got to stay there. No. I'm not going to sit here and rip on the Giants because you did NFL fans a favor. Yeah. You might have kicked your Giants fans in the balls a few times, but for NFL fans, this has been great.
Rose, I would have rather him see in Texans blue. That's what I would have rather happened instead of Eagles green. But yeah, so you know what? I like that take. It's a good consolation for me on this Monday morning. And why I think the most impressive Saquon Barkley stat of it all, and what's been happening this year. A lot of the broadcasts have talked about it. You hear it on the national broadcast. That's why I looked it up on Pro Football Reference. So Saquon Barkley basically has the same amount of attempts in the first half and the second half. 107 attempts in the first half this year, 116 attempts in the second half. But he almost has double the yards in the second half. 472 in the first half, 920 in the second half. 4.4 yards per attempt in the first half, 7.9 yards per attempt in the second half. And this is where all the football heads get all excited about, well, the run game is about grinding a team down, and you wear them down through the game, and then boom, the second half, you break the big one because you get the defense tired. I think that's where all the talking points come, and all the kind of the older heads of football get excited about the run games working this way, and it is working exactly like that in Philadelphia. So yeah, a lot of fun. Saquon Barkley, have fun in the playoffs. I'll enjoy the number 1 overall pick.
And that was our La Vida Más Fina game of the week. It was brought to you by Corona. And you know what we always try to be? That is a fan that never loses. So here's what we mean. Everybody knows I'm a Browns fan. Penik, Skinner, they are Giants fans. They had a rough Sunday. But when they don't win every single week, still never lose, because we all still love the game. We've got the passion. We still love football, whether it's hitting a deep pass or converting a third or fourth and short, or just having a great tailgate out in the parking lot like Penik did with the boys out there in Jersey yesterday. There's always something to cheer for. And the best beer to pair with those awesome moments, it's the one and only Corona. Corona is all about finding the maximum amount of joy within every moment of the game, win or lose, at home or on the road. It's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come along with it. So cheers to everybody who loves the game beyond the scoreboard. Corona, for the fan who never loses. Get yours at ordercorona.com. For 21 and over, relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, it's imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. And I imagine, despite the losing, you still had a great time at your tailgate, didn't you? Because you got to commiserate with your fellow Giants fans.
Yeah, anytime we get to share, usually when sometimes I'm at home, I'm just working the game at home alone. But when I'm at the game with a bunch of other people that like us, we like them, we know them, our community members, so it's awesome. And thanks to Corona for being part of our L16 tailgate over at Talking Giants.
Love that. Cheers to the Denver Broncos, who continue to stack wins, and they are currently the 7th seed in the AFC playoff chase as we head into the Monday night affair, where the Chargers are hosting the Ravens. 29-19, the Broncos a winner in Las Vegas for the first time as they take down the Raiders, who I think are going to be fighting it out with your New York Giants for that number 1 overall pick in the draft. Bo Nix continues to impress, 25 of 42, another 273 passing yards, couple more touchdowns to Cortland Sutton. Most importantly, no more turnovers. Dare I say that he has ripped away the Offensive Rookie of the Year award from Jaden Daniels.
I don't think we're there yet.
But we're close.
We're getting close. And I think the whole meme of Cliff Kingsbury in the months of November, December, listen, it may be a meme, but I think it's kind of true because the Commanders have gone very, very quiet. And Bo Nix is heating up. And Rose, like when I watched Bo Nix, today I watched that Raiders game, and I see a quarterback that is very, very confident. A quarterback that is looking safeties off and looking defenders off and using his eyes to manipulate defenders and throwing to guys that are open on early downs. A quarterback that's moving. A quarterback while moving and while running full speed and, either, all right, these guys are breathing down my neck. He's making good decisions to just throw away the ball and, learn to live another down. Bo Nix is doing that kind of stuff with, by the way, show me that offensive talent on Denver. It's not there. Cortland Sutton's a dog, and he had quite a good game against the Raiders yesterday. But a guy that stood out to me is the 7th round rookie that the Broncos have. He's a slot receiver, I believe. I want to find this because he had a good game yesterday. Vele, yeah. He had a really good game. Devon Vele kind of came out of nowhere, and he's been reliable for them. These are not Javonte Williams, is second on the team in receptions. So Bo Nix is making some really good decisions. He's confident. He's playing confident. I think you could just see it when he drops back. And that's the important thing for this Denver Bronco offense as they look towards the second half of this year. Oh, yeah, and their defense can carry them even when they're not scoring touchdowns consistently, and Will Lutz has 5 field goals on the day.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that defense. Coming into Week 12, they were the only defensive unit out there that was top 5 in both points per game allowed and total defense. And they also led the league in sacks, and they got 5 more yesterday, and they actually ended Gardner Minshew's season with a broken collarbone. Now, some people, the critics of Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos in particular, will say, yeah, they beat up on bad teams. And I get that, right? They are certainly doing that. Their most impressive win, let's see here, Bucks, Jets, Raiders, Saints, Panthers, Falcons,
Beat the
Raiders.
crap
So
out of
it's
the
the
Falcons.
Falcons. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the only winning team that they've knocked off. And here down the stretch, there's not a ton of them ahead. They're going to play a Monday night game against the Browns. They've got take on the Colts. They do have the Chargers and Chiefs and the Bengals. Those last three will not be easy because I still think that Cincinnati is going to be alive and kicking. You can I'm not going to penalize them here for their schedule. Whatever the schedule is, every year when you think sometimes the schedules are going to be really tough, they break a little easier. And when you think they're going to be, relatively easy, it gets a little tough because you just don't know. It's the beauty of NFL football from year to year. Here's what I like about Bo Nix. He's starting to throw the ball a little bit more downfield.
Yep.
I also think he's helping to maybe change the narrative a little bit. Because of NIL and because of the COVID year, we're seeing guys bounce from school to school in college football. And so some guys are coming out after 5 or 6 years. I think the NFL used to penalize those guys an awful lot and say, you know what, we'll take the 21-year-old who's got 15 starts instead, and we'll mold him at the NFL level. I don't know if that's working out great right now, but you can take Bo Nix, who I think had 108 starts in college, if I counted them correct. At least it felt that way between Auburn and Oregon.
Yeah.
Why should he be penalized if he's 24 years old and he comes into the NFL and he's played a ton of football? So we know what he is. Maybe that gives him a really high floor. And maybe if you build a really good team around him and you put him with an excellent coaching staff, maybe that is good enough to get you to where you want to be at the NFL level.
Yeah, I think high floor, you said it, but I think there is still a question on what his ceiling is. But I think for right now, that's okay.
Yeah,
for right
exactly.
now, that's very okay. Which I'm not surprised to see Bo Nix, especially since week 6, since week 7. They lost to the Chargers week 6 on that. Their offensive efficiency has been really good. I think they've been an average offense, and that's not, and especially when you have a top 5 defense, I think that's really, really good. He's been really, really good on third down since week 6 and week 7 too. So with Sean Payton, I'm not surprised to see this because Bo Nix was a guy that was very in rhythm and that was what he was at Oregon, in my opinion. Kind of just stayed consistent, had an offense in rhythm, limited the mistakes. That's what he was in college, and he had a lot of experience doing it. So I'm thinking looking at the way that Russell Wilson kind of ran that offense last year with Sean Payton. That was a guy, my computer's talking. That was a guy that took a lot of sacks, and maybe there were some mistakes that kind of limited drives. Bo Nix isn't necessarily doing that, and that's why I think towards the second half of the year that's really working for them.
Yeah, you mentioned Russell Wilson as well, and I want to go back to when he first became the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. He was doing some special things, but a lot of it was on that Legion of Boom defense. Now, I'm not saying that Denver's up to that ilk quite yet, but they are building something special. If you can continue to put more and more playmakers around Bo Nix and he develops now, is he ever going to have the playmaking ability that Russell Wilson had at his peak? I don't know. But Russell Wilson, it felt like, was much more along for the ride than the driving force when they won their lone Super Bowl 48, and they dismantled the Denver Broncos. Could I see that playing out? I do think that it's an uphill battle when you still have quarterbacks like Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, all in your conference, and you might have to beat multiple of those guys in the playoffs in order to get to the Holy Grail. But I do see a path there with Bo Nix continuing to get better.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that stuck out to me just right now, sack rate's at 4.5%, Rose. I mean, if you want to compare him to Russ, which actually, you know, it's funny. I had the 2012 Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson's rookie year. I had their Pro Football Reference page pulled up in getting ready for this conversation to maybe even compare like the two kind of situations. Russell Wilson as the guy, like kind of that underrated quarterback from college, Bo Nix taken in the first round, but still, what was he, the fourth? The sixth? Yeah, the sixth quarterback taken in this year's draft, even though it was the first round. So the situations are kind of comparable of the two for sure, but Bo Nix, limiting the negative plays, 4.5 sack rate, an interception rate of 1.5% is really, really good. That is better than what Russell Wilson did his rookie year. The touchdown rate for Wilson was a little bit higher, but I think the situations are somewhat comparable, 2012 Seahawks to the 2024 Denver Broncos.
All right, we will touch on one team that will be playing in the month of January. The question is how long? That is coming your way. But first, this word from my buddy Penik.
Yes, we have to talk about DraftKings because today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Grab your favorite team's jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football. And guess what? This Thanksgiving is going to be big too. Grab your Tommy DeVito jerseys, grab your Tommy Cutlets jerseys, grab your Cooper Rush jerseys because it's time to play Thanksgiving football. Get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Make Thanksgiving a little bit more exciting. Put a little parlay together. Maybe an 8-leg parlay. I call those octopuses. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you use our code FOOTBALL today, stay on the action, use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays. First shot at an even bigger payout. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, do not worry. You can still join in all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win some cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use our promo code Football today. That's all one word. Bet just $5 on any wager. You're going to $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code Football today only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You will be glad you did.
Certainly glad we did. The Houston Texans are very glad that they play in the AFC South. They still have a 2-game lead despite losing at home to the now 3-win Tennessee Titans. 32-27 was your final. And this people probably didn't have their eyes glued to this one, but I will say this. It was a fun watch. Will Levis did a lot of good things, I thought, for the Titans. And then Will Levis did some Will Levis things, like throwing his third pick six, which is the most in the NFL this season. That gave Houston a very temporary lead. If you're Houston, you're kicking yourselves. C.J. Stroud, 2 more interceptions, double digits in penalties. Kaimi Fairbairn, who had earlier in the game set a record with his 12th, 50-plus yard field goal of the season. Already, we're only 2/3 of the way through the season. That is already a single season record. He missed a chippy from 28 yards that would have tied the game with just a few minutes to go. The Titans tack on a late safety, and they end up winning this one by 5. I think big picture here, if there's a team that can easily stamp its road to the playoffs, it's the Houston Texans because of the division they're in. But Penik, at the beginning of the year, we thought that, certainly I did, I thought that the Texans were a Super Bowl leader. They look nothing close to that right now.
Rose, there's some problems. There are some problems going on in Houston right now. And the stat that concerns me the most is third down. And if you probably saw it on the broadcast too, there was a certain point where there were 6 minutes to go, six minutes and 36 seconds to go, and the CBS broadcast flashes the stat that the Texans are 3 for 9 on third down, and their average yards to go was 8.2, and they had a 3rd and 19 there, and that was before they took that was before they showed that stat before they took the safety with the minute 17 left, where they had a 3rd and 17. I couldn't believe seeing that game. Third and long, third and forever. The Houston Texans have, and that has been their Achilles heel so far since week 6. They've had 107 third down plays. That leads the NFL. Philly is second, by the way, which we have talked glowingly about the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's a little concerning for them. But here's the main difference. 107 third down plays, okay, but maybe it's a lot of third and shorts. Not the case for the Houston Texans. They have the 4th longest average to go distance since week 6. And if you do it for the entire year, I guarantee it's like them and the Giants that are topping in that average to go distance, and even the total plays that you run on third down as well. You hear Peyton Manning talk on the Manning cast all the time. First down, second down, first down, second down. It's the sign of a healthy, efficient offense when you're avoiding third down. The best third down offense is to avoid third down altogether. And that has been my worry all year for the Houston Texans, and even a little bit of a worry about Bobby Slowick heading into this year. It's like, yeah, he's getting head coaching love, and he did a lot of great things for Houston last year. C.J. Stroud looked really great. The deep, explosive plays, that's all fun. But they were not very efficient on early downs last year on first and second down. It's biting them in the ass this year. I think C.J. Stroud is leading the league in a stat that you don't want to be leading the league in. The most yards lost due to sacks, C.J. Stroud is leading. I think he's been sacked 39 times now this year, was only sacked 38 times last year. Yes, that is right, on the top of my head. Good for me. So, Rose, that's not good. And I understand the Texans, we're going to see them in the playoffs. The AFC South is bad, and the Texans are going to win some more games, but I think it's an underrated talking point in the NFL right now about how and why the Houston Texans are struggling right now. So I want to get your thoughts on that too.
Well, I can tell you this. It feels like the Texans are destined for the early Saturday window, first playoff game out of the gate. Again, they're going to be hosting the 5 seed is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You can dazzle everybody with whatever sort of stats and numbers you want. Just watch Houston last year as compared to this year. There was a calmness with their offense. And it was such a rarity and such a joy to watch because they had a rookie quarterback doing that. And C.J. Stroud was throwing touchdowns and having late game drives while not turning the ball over. He had 5 interceptions all last year. He's got 9 already through week 12.
Yeah, double it.
And it just feels a little bit more frenetic. I don't know how much of that changed when they lost Stephon Diggs for the season, but it feels like everybody is losing a good player. And so your rhythm is going to be disrupted at some point. It's your job to calm things down, to take a deep breath. Now, is there still time to do that? Yes, because the Texans still have the comfort of knowing they're winning this division. They won't come out and say it. D'Amico Ryans will say, listen, we don't have anything clinched till we have anything. Fine. You're winning this division. We'll see in January. You're going to host the 5 seed. Can you figure things out over the next 2 months before you have to play your do or die game?
Yeah. Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens. So they have the Jags, and then they have a late bye week. They have the Jags, late bye week. Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens. They finish the season against the Titans, who they just lose to. So I'm going to definitely be watching them. Even that Chiefs and that Ravens game. You know, you got the dichotomy, right? The Chiefs defense, tough defense, maybe it's tough defense to move the ball against. That's going to be a defense that wants to get you into 3rd and long, and then Steve Spags can kind of tee off. And the Ravens pass defense, that's a pass defense that is susceptible, that maybe could be had. So definitely watch Houston down the stretch and see how they operate on early downs and how they can avoid 3rd and long. Boom.
Well, listen, later this week, we will be rejoined by our buddy Bobby Skinner as we get you all set for another wild weekend. You got 3 games on Thursday with the Thanksgiving holiday. You got a Black Friday game between the Raiders and the Chiefs coming your way, then a full slate on Sunday, and then another one on Monday between Cleveland and Denver to wrap up week 13. For our producer, Connor, keep up the good work, my man. For Bobby Skinner, wherever you are traveling, high above us on that bird in the sky. And for Justin Penik, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next time here on Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL.